This section is somewhat of a sidebar to our printer profiling considerations. The two topics are unrelated, but important to know about in any case. Let's discuss optical brighteners first. Optical brightening agents, or OBAs, are dyes that paper manufacturers add to paper to make them look both whiter and brighter than the base paper itself. This is a double-edged sword for a handful of reasons. The way OBAs work is that they absorb UV light, and then some of that energy is then transmitted as visible light in the blue wavelengths. Since blue makes paper look both brighter and whiter, this has an appeal for certain types of images. In my opinion, there are three main problems with the use of OBAs. First, since they are dyes that actually react to UV light, just like inks, they fade with time and exposure to light, and this can happen fairly quickly if the paper is exposed to bright daylight for extended periods of time. The result is a color change back to the natural, more yellow base of the paper. The second problem is that OBAs react to light with a strong UV component like daylight. However, if you're presenting framed images that are prepared correctly, a key component to conservation framing is the use of UV filtering glass. In this case, the glass is blocking the UV component of the light that allows the dyes to fluoresce in the first place, and it cancels out the effect of OBAs. Lastly, OBAs can also cause problems when creating custom paper profiles. As these dyes fluoresce when hit with light having a UV component, the spectrophotometer reads back some colors that are literally glowing. The result is skewed readings of those particular color patches, and this may cause a color shift when the printer profile is used. To combat this problem, some devices, like the ISIS that we used, have software built into them called optical brightener compensation. This allows papers with OBAs to be accurately profiled. While papers containing optical brighteners have their place, I would recommend avoiding them for any fine art printing. By using one of the premium fine art papers, I can be assured that the image I get out of the printer will not change its base color over time, at least not beyond the normal fading that any color experiences. With today's papers having very long archival lives, up to 100 years or more, you can expect your images to keep their color and appearance for a long time. For part 2 of this side discussion, how about creating a profile for a printer at a remote location? Perhaps you're using a lab or a commercial printing service and you want the best profile possible. First question to ask is, what type of printer is producing the print? While some photo labs do provide profiles for their printers, this is often not a necessary activity. Photographic lab printers operate in a color space very similar to sRGB, and they calibrate these printers every day with test strips, so there's rarely a need for you to actually have to create a profile. The software that drives these printers knows very well how to convert your calibrated sRGB files into its color space. Your job is to provide them with an image file that is accurate on your calibrated and profiled monitor and has been converted to the sRGB color space. If you have done this correctly, your prints will come back closely matching your display. If you are sending out for large inkjet prints, then having a custom profile is not a bad idea. If the lab doesn't offer you one, you can do this yourself. The process is pretty much the same as when you print out the test charts and measure them yourself. The only difference is that when you choose the number of patches you want and are ready to print the pages, you choose Save As. Let me just jump into that screen in i1 Profiler. And you can see here, we've got a patch set ready to be printed. Instead of clicking on Print, simply Save As, and it will offer to save them as a TIFF file that you can then send out to the lab. When you get the prints back, simply read them in as if you had printed them yourself. One warning here, make sure to have the lab make no color corrections to the files. Ask them to simply print them with their standard settings so that you get reproducible results in the future. By the way, you can do this for photo printers as well if you'd like to give it a try. I'm not sure how much of a difference it will make in the results, but it can't hurt and it will only cost you the price of a couple of 8x10 prints.